Dr. Cindy Childress holds a PhD in English from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. She is the expert's ghostwriter, and I like to call her the book fairy. In her business, she supports entrepreneurs to write books that make money and make an impact. Her clients achieve bestseller status, give TEDx Talks with book awards, sign book deals, and more. And some of her highlights of the past 7 years include 43 client and student books published, 11 number one best-selling books, 10 book awards, and 2 traditional book deals. Dr. Cindy, in addition to her bespoke ghostwriting services, leads online writing and editing classes and author coaching programs. She's also a foster mom to cats and kittens with Rescued Pets movements and a faculty member with Writespace Houston in Texas. Welcome to Conversations with Women Trailblazers, Dr. Cindy. It's great to have you.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, being a guest. And today we have a very rich episode where we're going to showcase your expertise. And for people out there who are listening to us, I'd like to call her the book fairy. That's not her business name, but that's how I call her because she makes the magic. And if you're trying to write a book, you want to be an author, she is the person to go to. But before we get there, Dr. Cindy, can you tell us how you were as a young girl?
Yes, I was a big nerd. So I was always a bookworm. And from the first time I realized that books were written by people and they were called authors, I wanted to be one. I always, people would say about me, that I told such great stories that I should be a naturally gifted writer. And the funny thing is, even though I could make up things out of the blue and I could use words really creatively when I spoke, I was actually not a great writer starting out. I really struggled through high school because I just wanted to write what I wanted to write, and the teacher wanted us to write the way she wanted us to do it. And I had to learn some discipline and really learn some systems and processes around writing. And once I got the hang of those, everything else clicked together.
That's amazing. And I like that you said that you had to be disciplined about it because there's a lot of creative people out there. And especially with my kids, because I talk about all these things, they want to do so much. But I said, you can do anything, but you have to be disciplined. You don't have to be the smartest. You don't have to be the fastest runner. You still have to be disciplined in order to make things happen and do a good job. So this is a good story of yours. Tell us a little bit about your professional background. Were you always a writer?
So I have a PhD in English with a creative dissertation. And originally I wanted to be a professor and teach literature and do research at the collegiate level. And along the way, I fell in love with writing poetry. So that's how I came to have the creative dissertation. And then when I finished my degree in 2008, that was right when my then boyfriend at the time, now husband of 16 years, Jack, had the opportunity to live and work in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He invited me to come with him. And when I said yes to that, which ended up being a 7-year adventure, and we lived in Malaysia and Indonesia, and I was the president of 2 expatriate women's clubs, I hadn't really thought through that when I came back to America, academia would not be waiting for me with open arms. Instead, there I was with a 7-year work gap. And so with that work gap, I reinvented myself. And I want to tell you all how humble I had to become. I applied for jobs in the nonprofit sector and at big writing agencies and journalism. I couldn't even get an interview anywhere. And I even took my education off. I thought maybe that's the problem. They don't want to have a doctor working under them, but still nothing. And so I became a certified personal trainer because I'm also, while I was overseas, I took up running again with discipline very seriously. I completed 2 marathons and a lot of half marathons. And so I thought, health and fitness is also important to me. Maybe that's where I belong. So I worked my way up to managing the gym that I was a trainer in, and then I was promoted in that company to create a phone sales team and whole center for them because my phone sales were the highest in the company by far. And through building my confidence there and my leadership skills, I felt like there's more for me and I don't know what it is. So I started my writing business, and from there on, very quickly, I niched into the book sector, and ghostwriting really makes me happy because when people have ideas for a book, sometimes they're really good, but though they don't know what I know about all those structures and processes and how to do it. And if they're very good at speaking and they can just tell me what they want to say, then I can put it on paper and make it beautiful for them. And that makes them happy and me too.
That's great. And I identify with that because as a professional speaker, it's a lot easier for me to be on stage, which I know for many people, that's the greatest fear. To me, I feel like fish in water in front of hundreds, thousands of people. However, to sit down and write a story, write a book, it's like, oh my God, it's so hard. It's because it's a different skill, right? I think the way you think to be on stage and the way you think to write, there might be some similarities, but I think it's different somehow to put my thoughts in my hand and write them down. Am I correct? Am I saying the right thing?
You are completely correct. When you're, sorry, let me get a drink of water here. When you're on stage, your body is present. So there's a lot you can say with your body language that when we're just reading a book, that isn't there. And you can even kind of feed off of the crowd and see if people are really getting it, or if you need to explain something more or move on because they're not interested. In the book, we have to guess all those things as best we can and fill them in. And the way I like to do it does involve conversation. And I like to write a book as a love letter to the target reader, as if the author is sitting across from their reader in a cafe and they're leaning over to tell them a good story and this huge idea they have. And when you write like that, it does feel very conversational. But again, that's different from how you would present on stage when you're not talking to one person. You want everybody to feel included, but you also have to open it up to everybody.
Yes, that's very, you describe it beautifully there. And I wanted to ask you, what inspires you to write? If you're going to write a story, a poem, what inspires you?
Yeah, again, it's my marriage, right? Before I got married, I wrote a lot of angsty poetry, and I had a lot of success with that. And then after we've been married for quite a while, now when I'm inspired to write, it's more like I notice something. I know, like I get an idea. I think of an idea. I put two things together, and I'm like, huh, I've never thought of it that way before. And when I do most of my writing these days, instead of poetry, I am writing emails to my newsletter or social media captions. And for myself, I'm part of a sector of the email marketing world that really treats my emails like traditional poets would treat their poetry, because for like Wordsworth and Keats, they were self-publishing their own little leaflets in the beginning. And if a poet couldn't be published in the newspapers, they would maybe just have it printed on paper and just hand it out to people and just try to share their message. And that's very similar to having a newsletter and just putting it out there to the people who've signal that they're interested in what I have to say. And so I like to mix that in with more traditional things that you would put in a newsletter, like letting people know when this podcast is live so they can go listen to it.
That's great. And I know about, in the old days, how they published their own, I don't want to call it flyers, but their own pages, yeah, they had to and spread it themselves. You told me about how you get inspired, but when you're getting inspired, do you think do you see things in your brain as a movie, as photography, or do you just, it's just words for you? Or do colors or smells inspire you? How does that go?
Yeah, well, for me, it's like I suddenly understand something. So it's not usually that I visualize something, but it's that I get an insight, or we'll call it an epiphany, perhaps. Um, there's a story that I wrote in one of my newsletters about my dad, and growing up, he could fix his own cars, so he never wanted to buy a new car. He wanted to buy like the cheapest car that he knew how to fix, and so we were frequently broken down on the side of the road. And that was always a story, but I'd never told it, and I didn't really know what the point was. And he's passed away now 19 years. I don't want to be telling bad stories about him, but I figured out how to tell it when I was trying to find a way to write another story, which is about how I bought my car while my husband was in Russia. And I went in, I mean, he knew the kind that I wanted, and he knew that I had the money and I was putting it aside. So like it wasn't a total shock, but he, and so in trying to tell that story and what it is about me that made me the kind of woman who's just going to buy a car without even my husband looking at it, and is the kind of woman that I am because I grew up, with our car always broken down. And so, I've got all the warranties and everything. And so once I combined those two stories, I was able to tell the one about me buying the car without just making myself sound, you know, pretentious. And then I could tell the other story about my dad in a way that had a lot of warmth and kindness in it, and was a tribute to him.
Right. And I'm sure you're very grateful to present it that way. Because of course I identify my dad passed away several years ago as well. And of course, it's our dad. We don't want to say anything bad about them, but there's a reality of the
Yes.
story, right? We have to, let's present it in the kindest way, but still deliver the message, right?
Yes, let's tell
um,
the truth.
right. And if someone like me, someone who may get anxious about writing, I always need, if I'm studying, if I'm writing something, or if I'm reading something, I need to be in a totally quiet environment. Um, is this something that you see normally? Do you see people who know they need to be reading with music, or they need to have people around them talking? Because honestly, to me, it bothers me a lot. I have to be, honestly, if I could be in a vacuum and still survive, I would, because I cannot have any noise around me when I'm studying, when I am writing, when I'm reading. If I have to write a paper or something for medicine, it has to be totally quiet for me. How is it for other people that you've experienced?
Yeah, well, I'm really glad you asked. And this is something that is unique to each person. So when I'm teaching my book writing course and even my story writing course, I also go over like determining what your ideal writing conditions are, or your ideal writing environment. And for some people, that is they need to be out amongst people in a cafe, coffee shop. That's why everybody's with their laptops there. And then other people need music. Some people need calming classical music. Some people want rock and roll. Um, some people just need some background white noise, like you can have a white noise app these days, or have the washing machine or dishwasher running next door. And I am the kind of person who likes to put myself in a tunnel. And the tunnel doesn't always look the same for me, but my favorite place to ride is on an airplane. And what I love about that is I am captive. It's I can't go anywhere, I can't do anything else. It's me and my laptop, and I've got I know you can get on Wi-Fi on planes these days, but I'll have airplane mode on, so there's no surfing social media. It's just me and the project I'm working on, and somebody's bringing me drinks and food. I don't even have to get up for that, and I can get a lot of writing done. So I've got the white noise of the airplane, but otherwise I like quiet. And if people around me are talking or snoring, I get very upset because they're not just making my plane ride uncomfortable, they are interrupting my work. And I have Bose headphones that I wear in that case.
I am the same way. I cannot stand people, but except people talking around me, but except if I am at a hotel lobby,
Mhm.
those hotels that have a huge lobby where people are
Oh,
walking,
yeah.
that becomes more white noise for me
Oh,
until someone, stands or sits next to me and they're talking, they're having a phone conversation, or they're talking to the person next to them. That's where I'm like, okay, I'm done. I can't be in this place. But if it's an open space like that, yes. But for the most part, and I hope you identify with me, I love a quiet library.
yeah. I love the smell of libraries. I love the excitement of all the people looking at all the books. Those are great places to be. The librarians do a very good job keeping the noise down.
They do, they do. And I wanted to ask you, as a business owner, you've been in this atmosphere for a few years now. Are there any challenges or any obstacles that you've had to overcome? Anything that you can tell someone else who wants to do a similar job to what you're doing? What have been some of the obstacles you've had to overcome?
So many. I'm going to point to two, which were kind of the biggest ones that, both of them brought me to points where I had to ask myself, do I really want this? And then what am I going to do? Because this isn't working. So I started hiring people very soon after I started my business, and I had money and I had I had jobs coming in. And I hired people to work inside the business to do some of the writing and editing, and then I would check it and then send it to the clients. And I built up to a staff of 4 at the height. And this was within a year and a half of even beginning, which was um, really, that's its own story. And then I had to let one person go, and then someone else left on their own, and then I was down to 2, and then, but I wasn't replacing them, and I felt okay about that. And then, in the last one standing went on maternity leave. Um, she was supposed to be out for 6 weeks, and then 2 weeks before she was going to come back, she let me know she wasn't coming back. And so, I mean, and I love this woman, and she did such a good job the whole time she worked for me. I said, I'm really glad you have the luxury to make this choice for yourself and you want to stay home with your baby. That's great. And then I had to look at my business and be like, okay, what am I going to do? Because I'd sold all this work expecting to have her by my side. And I had to do it all myself. So I was working like 50, 60, it felt like 80 hours a week, but I hope it wasn't that much. And there was a period of time when, I mean, I was just working so much to fulfill all that work. And so I came away seeing that I'd hired too early. And really, what I should have done once I had enough, once business was coming in steadily, I should have just raised my rates rather than starting to hire people to come in and work with me in that model. And I also realized, even though I'd been a boss in the gym that I managed and in the call center that I supervised, I didn't love doing it in context of checking people's writing. That was a lot more work than just running a report for their KPIs. And so I realized that wasn't how I wanted to run this business. And then the other thing I'll say is I went all in on Facebook ads in 2022. I spent a lot of money. I was really counting on a big return, to the point that I was trying to scale my online course, and I didn't have any ghostwriting clients lined up because I wanted to pivot to just doing the online book coaching with the course model. And it didn't pan out. And so again, I had to look at myself and say, okay, what are we going to do? And I had to drum up a client who turned out to be absolutely wonderful. And I love the book that we worked on, which we recently finished. And I created a new offer that was a different way to work with people. And, I found my way through. But I mean, those things happen. And with entrepreneurship, you always have to be prepared that everything is a test when you try something out and you don't really know if it's going to work or not. And sometimes it just doesn't. That's just the truth. And when that happens, it's important to be able to snap out of it pretty quickly and say, okay, what's next? Shake that one off.
That's true. It's no easy feat being a business owner. And I think each business has its own identity and has its own set of problems. You know, as a writer, ghostwriter, you have your own issues that are only happening in that environment, as opposed to someone else who has maybe a brick and mortar or some other type of service business. But I think the important thing is that we find a way to overcome them. I've spoken to several business owners throughout the years, and it's always the same. There's always something that makes you think it twice. Like, did I do the right thing? Did I actually what did I get myself into? I think we all go through the same, but it's great when we overcome it and we learn, we move on. So if anything were to happen the next time, anything like that, you would know how to approach it. So that's hopefully the lesson there. And you learn, you grew from there, and your business still going forward.
Yes.
It has been an amazing interview. If people wanted to contact you, what would be the best way?
Go to my website, www.cindychildress.com, and I have a free quiz there, Discover Your #1 Best-Selling Author Personality. So you can get an insight into your superpowers that will help you write your book. And I'm also on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn with the handle @Cindy Childress, PhD.
Thank you so much for being a guest. I've enjoyed it. There you have it, people. If you want to contact Dr. Cindy, please reach out to her through social media or her website. Let us know in your comments if you enjoyed it. And please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you can get an alert when the new episode comes out. Thank you, Cindy. Thank you for being here.